My name is Brett, and this is my YouTube channel. I am going to be talking about records. Oh my gosh, stop it. You naughty cat, that's my water. Good evening. My name is Brett, and I would like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. I am doing this for a number of reasons. The first is to help me practice with speaking off the cuff. I'm not a very good public speaker, especially if I don't have a script in front of me. So I've written out a couple of notes, but I'm going to try to improvise most of what I say. Second reason is I'm very passionate about records, and so I am going to be talking about records and all of the associated accessories and all that kind of stuff. I don't exactly know how the format's going to be for this, so I'm going to play with it till we figure out something that works pretty well. Right now, I have a little over 400 records, which in the record community, depending on who you are, if you're just starting, that seems like quite a bit. If you have been a collector for a long time, or you have unending amounts of cash, then that seems like a pretty small amount. But I'm happy with what I've got for right now. The temptation to buy records is always prominent. But for right now, the format of what I'd like to talk about is I'd like to speak about the artist or composer for the record, and then I'd like to talk about specific tracks on the album, and then give some final notes and thoughts at the end. If you enjoy, subscribe to see more. If you like what you see, press the like button. Comment for records that you'd like to see, or if you have any other thoughts on what I say, or any suggestions, I'm always open. And always feel free to share this video with anybody who you think might find it interesting. Today's album is by one of my favorite composers and pianists, Chick Corea. Chick Corea, named Armando Anthony Corea, nicknamed Chick, was born June 12th, 1941, in Chelsea, Massachusetts. He grew up around jazz. His father was a trumpet player and a band leader of a Dixieland band in Boston. Chick took up piano lessons with Salvatore Sulo at the age of 8. Chick Corea's dad gave him a tuxedo, and then he started playing gigs in high school. After a lot of work, Chick Corea joined Miles Davis's band in the late 1960s with Davis's third or fourth big jazz innovation, as we all know that Miles did. And that would be fusion, jazz fusion, a combination of jazz and rock. Corea recorded on Miles Davis albums such as Files de Kilimanjaro, In a Silent Way, and Bitches Brew. When he left the Miles Davis band, he started recording on the Blue Note label, as well as ECM, with bassist Dave Holland, fellow former Miles Davis bandmate. Chick Corea started the band Return to Forever, and they came out with some brilliant albums, like their self-titled album, Romantic Warrior, and the iconic album Light as a Feather. Around this time, Chick Corea married Gail Morin in 1972. Morin is a well-renowned keyboardist and vocalist. She was a member of the Mahavishnu Orchestra in the 1970s, but was also featured on several of Chick's albums, including today's featured album. After Return to Forever, Chick embarked on a number of solo projects, including the album today, The Mad Hatter. After these projects, we see the Electric Band, spelled with a K, E-L-E-K-T-R-I-C, which brought on the inevitable Acoustic Band, spelled with a K as well, A-K-O-U-S-T-I-C, During the later part of his career, he focused on many contemporary classical projects, as well as touring in trios and other various projects. Common orientations in these trios are my favorite bassist, John Patitucci, and Vinnie Colaiuta. John Patitucci and Dave Weckl. Colaiuta and Weckl being the drummers. Bassist Christian McBride and drummer Brian Blade. Chick Corea passed away on February 9th, 2021. So coming up on a year now. Passed away in Tampa Bay, Florida. Chick Corea released 81 studio albums, 17 live albums, and 9 compilation albums. So, moving on from that, this is the album of the day. This album is called The Mad Hatter, obviously by Mr. Chick Corea. The label is on Polydor. You can see that right there on the center label, Polydor. Matrix number is PD-1-6130. Album was released in 1978, and it was recorded in Burbank, California, at Ken Dunn Recorders. It was pressed at the PRC Recording Company in Richmond, Indiana. Now, this album is a concept album inspired by Lewis Carroll's 1865 novel, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It reached a number 8 peak position on the 1978 Billboard in top jazz albums, as well as the number 68 peak position on Billboard's top pop albums. Rolling Stone Jazz Record Guide gave it 2 out of 5 stars. What do they know? So let's take a look at some of the media here. So we'll take a look at the cover, and then we'll take a look at the record sleeve and liner. So another good look at the record front here. We've got Mr. Corea here. He's wearing this beautiful teal blouse here. You've got the pocket watch, these striped pants, and the clown shoes. His foot propped up on this this log here. Beautiful table and a very dainty teacup. Beautiful hat right here, the little heart and sequins and a feather. I think it's really cool. We've got this frame all the way around the edge. I don't know if you can see that very well, but the frame I think is just think it looks really pretty, like it's a painting. We take a look at the back, and we've got that same kind of flooring as on the front. Same table, different teapot with that same pocket watch hanging there. And then we have a whole bunch of text here. Lists the tracks on here, side 1 and side 2, as well as the musicians, and all of the production credits. A couple of noteworthy things I'd like to point out. Down here at the bottom says also available on 8-track and cassette. I always get a kick out of that whenever I see a record that says that, because we're reaching a point where we're starting transition from records to 8-tracks or cassettes and eventually CDs and streaming and so on. The second thing I thought was kind of noteworthy. If you'd like to write me a letter, please feel welcome to do so. Chick Corea, P.O. Box 85220, Los Angeles, California 90072. So I don't know if that P.O. Box is still valid or not. Who knows? Somebody write a letter. See what happens. Maybe Miss Moran will answer back. I'm not sure. Take a look at the inner sleeve. So right here on side 1, we've got all sorts of different text here. I'll dive into that in a second, but I love the colors of this. It's so late 70s. We've got this beautiful gold and this green, and then this burgundy right through here with the white and everything. So the thing that's interesting about a lot of this is it's not only just listing the track names and lyrics like you commonly see in lyric sheets and liner notes, stuff like that, but it also has little snippets of text. So for the first track is called The Woods. And we've got a little bit of text here. The woods are inhabited by many different kinds of beings. It's midnight and the moon is full. It's extremely warm this night and the water is running at its normal pace. The little winged spirit with his flute encourages the others into harmonious games from above and through the trees. An impassioned soliloquy unites all the beings together to chant about their ancient homeland. Lots of cheesy little text through here, but I really like it. So we've got all these different texts through here, as well as for each track it lists the musicians that were present on the recording of that specific track. What's interesting about The Woods, and we'll talk about in a moment, Chick Corea is the only person that plays on it. However, he is listed as playing the MXR digital delay, marimba, acoustic piano, Moog 15, ARP Odyssey, Mini Moog, Oberheim 8-voice, Eventide harmonizer, Polymoog, Moog sample, and hold. So Mr. Corea has played every single part of this, and it's very incredible to hear that, and I will discuss that more. Let's see. Going to the back, we've got more text here, more of the lyrics as well. There's there's 1 right here, 2, and 3. So there's 3 tracks with lyrics on them. There are more tracks that have vocalizations by Ms. Moran as well, but there's only 3 tracks that have lyrics on it. The rest of it is instrumental. And then at the end, on the second side of this, we've got acknowledgments, and this is going to be typical acknowledgments like you'd find in a novel or something. So, for instance, it's going to be the normal stuff. My thanks to Steve Gadd for his great contribution to this album. His creation on the drums is a consistent joy. There's a couple of really interesting ones, though. Let's see. So the very last one, and in quotes it says, "The Mad Hat was designed and handmade by the Clearwater Gallery, Clearwater, Florida." This hat right here. Beautiful hat. Wish I owned one. The second interesting one I thought kind of gave me a little chuckle. The staff of New Art Management would like to thank Chick for not riding his motorbike during the recording of this album. So, apparently Chick Corea was a motorcycle fanatic. Okay, so moving on from that. We've got all of that. Okay, so the first track on this album is called The Woods. So the opening of this has it's all synthesizer for the most part, and it's like drops dripping in the forest, very similar to what you would imagine in this wonderland, the woods, obviously. And you hear this soft bass synthesizer pad open up, and then all of a sudden all of these voices of these different synthesizers are just filling the room with sound. It is unbelievable. Moving on, we go to a track called Tweedledee. Now Tweedledee starts with Chick doing a common technique that he would use. He would reach his hand into the piano and mute the strings or pluck them, do all sorts of stuff like that. This is Chick alongside a string quartet. Let's see. And that is very interesting music to hear. Then we come on to The Trial. The Trial is the third track on side 1. hear ye, the king calls his wacky court together, and the pressing question is asked. The subjects are not afraid to accuse the king himself. This pressing question is sung by Mrs. Moran, and this question is, who stole the tarts? Was it the King of Hearts? Who knows? Who knows who stole the tarts? The trial begins with a trumpet fanfare, and then all sorts of different stacks and layers of orchestration. We've got drums, we've got trumpet. Already talked about that. More horns, trombone, and then that string quartet. So almost like a jazz orchestra, like you would find in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And then we come along to Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty is going to be about the most straight-ahead jazz that you would hear on this album. Now, the thing about this album that's really, really cool is it shows Chick Corea's prowess as a composer, but Chick Corea is also very well known for being an incredible player and jazz musician. And so when we're listening to this, then we get a lot of that straight-ahead jazz, all of his time gigging when he was in high school, growing up all the way to be admitted into Miles Davis's band. And so this is a quartet with Chick Corea, obviously, on acoustic piano, a tenor saxophone player named Joe Farrell. Mentioned him earlier. On drums is Steve Gadd, absolutely brilliant, always. And on bass, Eddie Gomez. Eddie Gomez came in and started playing bass with the Bill Evans trio after... I can't remember his name. I should have written it down. There was a bass player that played with Bill Evans, and his name escapes me right now, but he passed away at a very young age. Mid-20s, I think. Brilliant bass player. But Eddie Gomez came in after him, and Eddie Gomez is brilliant in his own right as well. But Eddie Gomez on Humpty Dumpty, this is a really, really great tune. It's got a really great head on it. Just so good. Classic Chick Corea jazz. It is so good. Moving on to Prelude to Falling Alice. We have some more orchestral writing, composer Chick Corea, and it builds into the introduction of I guess it would be the second track that has lyrics, and that would be entitled Falling Alice. So we've got the intro to Falling Alice, which is Prelude to and Falling Alice. Alice enters the woods in a very unusual way. So, we have that. But it ends when it starts playing the melody for Falling Alice. Then we get into Falling Alice. And these lyrics were not only sung by Mrs. Moran, but also the lyrics were by Mrs. Moran. And we've got two verses here, ending with a chorus per se. The lyrics at the end of each verse is the same. Time's a lie, love never dies, living on, and on is the ending for both. So on that we have the full orchestration of the whole group. We've got a incredible solo by Chick Corea on the Mini Moog. Just brilliant. He's soloing on the Mini Moog with his right hand and then comping on the Fender Rhodes with his left hand. Very, very classic thing to do with fusion. You see this happen a lot with other fusion artists. I know with Snarky Puppy, oftentimes Corey Henry would do the same thing. He would be, in fact, the Corey Henry solo. Of course, that's escaping me now too. But he's soloing on the mini Moog with his right hand, Rhodes on the left hand. Brilliant. Right up there with it. Let's see. After that, we've got... Okay, so during that, Steve Gadd is laying down a soloistic groove, and it is so good. So good. The harmonic structure for this, very loosely, has the bass playing a pedal point throughout the form, and then we've got a little chromatic turnaround back into the pedal, and it just keeps going through there. Let's see. So moving on from there, Moran ends on a high note, literally. Very, very, very high note. She has a very wide range. Now, after that, we move into a... Where did we go? There we are. After Moran ends on a very, very high note, Chick Corea takes over and plays a piano solo cadenza. After that, the themes from the beginning, from I believe it was The Woods. The themes from The Woods is brought back, and we end side one with the string quartet. Turning over to side two. Side two, track number 1, is called Tweedledum, and the text says, Tweedledum mournfully recalls the beauty of his distant past. And right here we have Chick on piano, we have our string quartet, and vocals by Mrs. Moran. And right here we have vocalizations by Ms. Moran, bringing up Snarky Puppy again. So the first two notes of this track are very similar, almost identical, if not even in the same key, to the opening track of Snarky Puppy's album Silva and their work with the Metropole Orchestra. Their first track on Silva is called Sintra. For the longest time, I read that as Sinatra, and eventually I figured it out. This track introduces material from the upcoming track, and that would be Dear Alice. It ends with a very long, amazing bass solo by Eddie Gomez. Going on to Dear Alice, we have some very strange lyrics by Mrs. Moran. Very beautiful, but very, very strange. We've got a solo by Joe Farrell on flute. Steve Gadd, always brilliant with a Latin groove. Chick Corea is obviously an expert Latin jazz pianist, playing on top of that. And there's some really, really cool syncopated horn licks in the backgrounds for each time of the solo. I did mention earlier that this is the kind of album that you probably need to listen to a couple of times before you really start to get the full effect of it. I noticed reading here a little while ago, under Dear Alice, it's got Chick Corea playing acoustic piano, marimba, and finger cymbals. Now, Chick Corea, before he was a pianist, taking lessons at age 8, he did start playing drums. And so that is where his affluence with percussion instruments may have started. And so he probably picked up marimba at some point. Now, in total transparency, I don't remember hearing any marimba in that track, but I will have to go back and listen again and see if I can find that. So, Dear Alice is the final track that has lyrics. Well, I say that. The final one that has listed lyrics here, I'll get into that in a moment. So we've talked about Dear Alice, and now we go to the final track on side 2, and that is the Mad Hatter Rhapsody. So the Mad Hatter Rhapsody is just straight Latin jazz big band writing. You know, it's got Steve Gadd, brilliant grooves the whole time. We've got a solo by Chick Corea on the Moog, and special guest, Mr. Herbie Hancock on the Fender Rhodes. I almost read it earlier, but I wanted to keep it a surprise. The very first acknowledgement on the liner here: my special thanks to Herbie Hancock for his friendship and uniquely brilliant contribution to this record. Herbie Hancock's solo on Mad Hatter Rhapsody. It's Herbie Hancock. What can I say? After we get through most of Mad Hatter Rhapsody, it turns into a reprise of Falling Alice from the previous side. And we sing the second half of the first verse. So it starts with, remember little friends are always loving you. Now I can see, I can be here or there, everywhere. Time's a lie, love never dies, living on, and on. And then it fades out, very similarly to the way that it fades out on the first side. And that's the end of the B-side. Final thoughts. First time that I listened to this album, it blew my mind. I remember I bought it on a whim for $16. I don't remember where. I know I've got it written in on Discogs, but I can't remember where. But I bought it for $16, and at that point, that was after I started getting into Chick Corea about a year ago, and I had definitely known Chick Corea from when I was playing in my university's big band, and we played Spain. I was playing the guitar part for that, and man, that was a brilliant tune. I'm not gonna go off on a big old tangent of it, but we went on tour with Spain along with some others. I'd have to look them up. I know the James Bond theme was in there too. But Spain was brilliant, and that was my first discovery of Chick Corea. But anyway, I started listening to Chick Corea on YouTube, probably, watching a couple of live recordings. Let's see. So one of the things about this album, when I put it on and I listened to it, the first couple of moments on that very first track, The Woods, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, this is beyond anything I'd ever heard before. I'd never heard anything like that. And while I was listening, I believe I looked at it and I saw that it had Chick Corea playing every single instrument on that first track. And that just doubled down on my blown awayness. And so I was sitting in a recliner, and I just sunk back further and further into the chair, just mind totally blown by Mr. Corea. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with this album. Now, the thing about this album is the first side is incredibly strong. Super top to bottom. Nothing hard to listen to. As long as you're open-minded, I guess I should say. It's a little bit out there, just a little bit. It's not the most out there you could possibly go, but it's very palatable compared to what you can find with some fusion albums. But I think that's probably due to its storytelling-esque manner. So the second side was a little bit harder to wrap my brain around, I guess. I'm not sure why. Maybe listeners' fatigue or stamina, something like that. But the album, as a whole, after listening to it several times, is just brilliant. I wanted to go back because I didn't get to mention this. Talking about Humpty Dumpty, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth. Well, I guess it's fourth. There's an intro that's counted as one. The fourth track on side 1, I do need to mention that is probably my favorite track on the whole album. Specifically because I had heard it in a different form before I'd heard this album. So Humpty Dumpty is considered a jazz standard, like you might find Autumn Leaves or So What, something like that. Humpty Dumpty is a tune that I heard for the first time on YouTube watching Chick Corea live, and it was, who was the, okay, so John Patitucci on bass, Vinnie Colaiuta on drums. And I mean, just brilliant. The recording is from a live session they did at the Blue Note in Tokyo, 1992. John Patitucci is a little bit past his mullet phase. Everybody's all sweaty and gross looking. Vinnie Colaiuta's got a half a cigarette sticking out of his mouth, smoking while he's playing on the ride cymbal. But just the first time I heard that, it's so brilliant. It's such a fast head, and of course I'm obsessed with John Patitucci. So he's up real high playing in thumb position, and he's just killing it. So I guess if I've got to do that could probably be part of the whole format. My favorite track on the album is Humpty Dumpty. So those are my final thoughts. That's all I've got. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions. Please like and subscribe if you really enjoyed this. Let me know what you'd like to see me do or not see me do. I'm new at this. I'm no video editor. I'm a band director. So please let me know what I can do differently to hopefully make these videos more palatable, more enjoyable by those that are in the vinyl community, as well as those that just like new music recommendations. This album, you can probably find it for even cheaper than $16 in any kind of thrift store or record store. It's not exactly a highly sought after album. I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's a first pressing or not, but I'm still learning about that stuff. So that's all I've got. Have a great night. One quick thing I'd like to add. This fella here's Chick. He's even got the name tag. Come on, let's show him. Right there. Named him after Chick Corea. He's a little bit of a bugger, so I don't know why he didn't come and bug me while I sat here and talked for 30 minutes. But here we are. Have a great evening.